So this is my lead vocal track right here, and this is the send section. So we're going to click on this, we're going to go down to bus, and we're going to select an unused bus. Now, what's different about bus 1, 2, and 3?
They already wrote it somewhere.
Yeah, how can you tell?
It says it.
Yeah. So in Pro Tools, when a bus was used, it was highlighted yellow. In Logic, it still lets you know by the little arrow and the name of the track that it is currently sending to. So there's really like no confusion as to whether or not a bus is used or not. So I'm just gonna select bus 4 because that is the first unused track. And what's gonna happen when I select bus 4? It's gonna make an aux track. And it's automatically gonna set the input of that aux track to bus 4. Boom. So here is our new send on the lead vocal and aux 4, which is right here. I'm gonna name it verb. And if I'm doing this as a reverb track, do I put the reverb plugin on the actual lead vocal track or on the aux track that I just made? On the aux track, yes. So let's go up to audio effects, which is this gray box right here. Again, if you get lost, handy dandy little cheat sheet right on the left hand side. So let's go down to reverb and let's do the Quantec Room Simulator. Let's find a preset that sounds funny. 1 through 6, someone pick.
4.
All right. The Yardstick Dialogue Library. Outdoors? Okay, we're sending our vocals in an ice rink. Cool. So, what I'm going to do with the Reverb 2 is right click and hit create track so I can move that, that track around. I'm still going to keep my reverb outside of, well, towards the bottom of the session. Now, I'm just going to solo this lead vocal real quick here. Yeah. Does that sound like it has reverb on it?
Making me the food shot.
No. You know what? No, the preset does not suck.
Master?
What?
The master? Turn up the
No.
master?
I didn't turn what up? No, the bus is up.
It's on the actual track. It's like it'll be on the individual track lead and like that.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called.
When we did this in Pro Tools, you remember when you first made your effects heads in Pro Tools and it didn't work? There's something you had to do to make the effect work? Not on the individual track. There was something that popped up on screen. Yeah, the little fader that popped up on your screen, right? So that is the send volume. That is the volume of the copy being moved through that bus. Now, there was no little fader that popped up on screen here. So,
It's that little sort of
yeah.
option.
So, talking about the little things in Logic that you can click on but don't really look like you can click on them. The little circle next to the sends is the send volume itself. It's not going to be a pop-up like in Pro Tools. This is a knob. So to turn up this knob, you click it, drag it up, and you start to see little green. This is the signal. I'm just going to put it to Unity or 0. And now with it soloed, you should hear our vocals through an ice rink.
I berry want the jungle juice. Banana cream makes me wild.
It's a vibe. I'll work with it. So, our reverb is working, and I like to save all of my reverbs and like special effects stuff towards the end. So I'm gonna turn down the volume of the verb in the aux track, just so I can work with the dry vocal first, and then bring in the reverb once we have a more solid mix. How many effect sends do we need? 3. Cool. My guitars, I want to put a delay on them. So I want them to affect both guitars equally, so I'm going to do a send on the guitar submix. So that it goes to sends bus, and then we can do bus 5. I'm going to option click to just kind of default the send volume to unity. We have an aux track over here, aux 5. I'm going to name it delay. But I'm not going to use just any delay. I'm going to go into our audio effects and go down to amps and pedals, and I'm going to hit pedal board stereo. I want to find a delay in here because it's guitars and I want to use guitar pedals on them. Yeah. So, you know, let's do a heavenly chorus because the vape makes you feel like you're floating. I don't know. The tie-dye delay because, okay, we're feeling very spiritual. And let's put on this phase because it looks like the mystery machine. I realize I've kind of gotten far from the point of a delay. But that's fine. You know what? It's fine. So I'm gonna turn down. I'm just gonna name this guitar effects because we've transcended. And in keeping with tradition, I'll make it an effect send on the vape track because I want to do something funny with the vape track. So on vape, I'm making another submix or another effect send. Sorry. I'm just gonna name this vape effects. What effect do we want to hear on the vape? Okay. Oh, you got the preset now. The vintage string ensemble. Yeah. All right. We'll hear how that sounds later. Just gonna turn that down. Gonna right click and no, not that VCA. No VCA. Gonna create tracks on these just so I can see them. And we can automate those later. Boop, boop. So my session is ready to actually mix now. Is there any questions about that whole process of routing? So why can't I delete this?
It's kind of easier to me.
Yeah. No, it's very easy.
Is there any real difference between the two ways to do it, or not really?
Well, the only difference really is the fact that you can collapse the folders to hide the tracks that are in them. That's the way that I prefer because I like to keep my sessions as like small as possible. But I figured I'd just show them both because you should know how to do both. But you can honestly choose either one. They both achieve the same thing in the end, but it's just two different ways of getting there. So, any other questions about like the routing stuff before I move on to the mixing stuff? No? Cool. So let's go ahead and start polishing this turd.
How do you delete
This VCA? I'm not sure. It's gonna let me delete it here. There we go. Yeah, so sometimes in Logic, you can't delete tracks from the mixer. You have to do it from the edit window. Sometimes you can hit Command and delete to delete them from the mixer, but sometimes it doesn't. If that happens one more time, close it.
What is it?
I don't know.
They work better.
Yeah. If anyone comes in, then loud. Cool. So, I'm going to start with the drums and kind of work my way down. So I'm just going to turn the faders down on everything that isn't the drums. So that's the submixes for everything else, and individual tracks if it's just that. And then all of the drum tracks besides the kick in, I'm going to turn down as well, just so I'm starting with a fresh kick. So this is what we're working with here. I'm going to create a cycle region. This is how Logic handles loops. So if you click and drag on the top bar where it says the bar number, you'll get this yellow yellow section. This is your cycle range. So this range is always going to repeat. You can press C to turn it on and off if you want to just keep it going after you've looped a certain amount of times. There we go. So this is our kick in. And we have two microphones on the kick. We have kick in and then we have a kick out. So what do you hear in these kicks?
The chime bell thing.
Background noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of bleed. You hear a lot of like cymbal stuff. What? Yeah, it is not a good kick. Yeah. Let's do something about this kick because it is bad. So to add an EQ on a track, what you can do is just click on this little window that says EQ. So what this does is it automatically puts the stock Logic EQ on your track, and you notice it. You get a little preview of your EQ right here. So if I do something stupid like this, you see your EQ in the window. We also have a frequency analyzer on the EQ, so you can see the EQ of whatever it is that you're EQing. So this drum is missing a lot of like attack. It's just kind of yeah. I mean, you said it best. It sounds like Tupperware. There's some attack from the kick out, but it's not really a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus both of these signals. So I'm going to cut most of the high end out of the kick in, just to kind of focus on just the body. And then I'm going to cut a lot of the bass out of the kick out, just so I can focus on the attack, and then blend those two together to hopefully get a better sounding kick. Now, from earlier this semester, as well as all of your other classes, who knows what a filter is? Who remembers what a filter is?
High pass filter or something.
High pass filter is one of them.
Oh, no low pass filter.
High pass and low pass filter, yes. What do they do? Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah, they're either called high pass or low pass, or you can get a low cut and high cut filter. Or in some situations, they aren't even labeled, but they're just a symbol. Guess what they are in Logic? Just a symbol. So if we look at our EQ, you can see at the top here we have all the different bands. So we have a low shelf, kind of a low mid, lower, higher mid, mid, highs. And then at left and right, you see this little symbol right here? That's our filters. You have to manually engage the filters to turn them on. So for my kick in, I want to cut out the high end. So the high cut or the low pass filter is right here. So I'm just going to click on it once. You'll notice a little purple dot appear on the right hand side of your screen. And you can click and drag this to cut out all the frequencies above this point. bit of the bass too to get rid of a lot of that. Well, it's not a lot, it's just a little bit. Just the thuddiness. Because there is a lot of it. Now it just kind of sounds like a, not quite a basketball, a flat basketball hitting the ground. I'll see if it sounds better. There we go. Yeah, there's our body. Okay.
This shit crazy.
So now I'm going to turn this fader down, turn up our kick out. And this is where I want all of the attacks. So I'm going to use a high pass filter. So clicking on the same one but on the left hand side. And I'm going to use one of these bands to you can use the scroll wheel up and down to either widen or narrow your band if you want to do something a little bit more surgical or just tone shaping. And I'm going to do a high cut just to try to get rid of some of that bleed. Let's see how bad this sounds. Too much. What's it show sound? You know what? I think I can make this kick work. Let's bring in our snare. So, this is kind of a wonderful example of like no one's gonna listen to your stuff soloed. On its own, that kick sounds like shit, but immediately with a snare, it sounds better. So with the entire kit and the overhead, I think this this kick is going to be just fine. So we have a snare top. This is where you get all of the body of the snare, and then we have the snare bottom, which is where you get a lot of that high-end sizzle that a snare is known for. Again, nothing special here. I'm just finding a balance between the snare top and the snare bottom to kind of get a tone I'm looking for. So because this is, for the most part, like laid back, I don't want too much of the snare bottom because I want to keep the drum kit relatively chill. All right, that's decent. Let's throw in the hi-hat. Wait. Yeah. So this is the hi-hat mic. What are you hearing it?
Background noise.
What'd you say?
Like background noise.
Oh yeah, that it gets rough. Yeah. So hi-hat mics are great when you need it, but you don't need that much. A hi-hat mic very prominent in the mix is going to be very overpowering because the hi-hat is like a lot of high-end, it's timekeepy stuff, so you're doing a lot of ting, ting, ting. And that ting, ting, ting over the course of an entire 4-minute and 20-second song can be a little much at times. It's very piercy. So I'm going to throw an EQ on this to kind of take care of some of that that low end. So click on the EQ window. The low cut button's right here, and I'm just gonna move it up. You can get pretty aggressive and not even notice it. This is 200 hertz. Yeah. So I'm gonna bury it in the mix by turning the volume down because, like, you really don't need a lot. All right. We have 3 toms here that barely get hit. Some toms are tom 1, tom 2, and floor tom. I'm going to solo those up. Oh, I missed. There we go. Select the tracks. You can't just click and drag, and then okay. Sure. And now, last 2, we have our overheads, which are getting a lot of the cymbals. The overheads, you can get pretty aggressive with the low cut as well, just because they don't need. I'm gonna click on the 2 little dots and go no plugin. Of course, it did it for both. I'm gonna set it to around 220, just because we option click and drag to copy plugins over to tracks. Overheads are used for cymbals and getting kind of like the attack of drums that aren't the kick drum. So you can go aggressive with the high pass filter just because the overheads just don't need it. And here we go. Those overheads are a little hot. Alright, so Command S to save real quick. So I have my drums, I have the volume set. Now I need to pan them. How do you pan a drum kit? Well, an acoustic drum kit, usually.
Audience perspective.
Well, that's one way you can pan them. Yeah. So we typically pan acoustic drums based on how they are laid out, either from the perspective of the audience or the perspective of the drummer. So what did you guys default to audience's perspective?
Because we're an audience.
Well, this wasn't recorded live. So if you were mixing, like, you know, let's say for sound reinforcement or for a concert that's actively going on, you would almost exclusively pan the drums to audience's perspective because that's how the audience is perceiving the show. But this is a studio recording. There was no audience, well, besides whoever recorded this. So we can do anything we want with the panning. I like panning my drums in drummer's perspective because I think it's fun to put the listener into the seat of the drummer. Now, if this was like a live thing, then you almost exclusively stick with audience, but you have the option for studio. It really doesn't matter because there was no audience. So, do we need a refresher on how a drum kit is laid out? Yes, no, maybe? I don't know. No? Alright, cool. So for audiences, or for, you almost got me. For drummer's perspective, where does the kick drum go? Center, yes. What gets saved for the center channel usually in our mixes? Lead box, or whatever is important at the time. Yeah. Everything else should be panned a degree left or right. So, Kick drum in the middle. For drummer's perspective, where does the snare go? A little to the left. 15 is fine. Alright, somebody new, where does the hi-hat go? Yeah, to the left. I'm gonna get you to say something, Fred. Tom 1, where does it go? Yep, little to the left. More or less left than the snare?
How did, oh,
Less left. Tom 2. Go to the right. Floor Tom? Oh, I put it all with. I like white times. So, overhead left, where does it go? Overhead right, where does it go? So now our drums are panned. Let's listen to the same section, shall we? The same section, shall we? So did you hear how the drums kind of have a little bit more depth to them now that things have their own spot to live? Cool. Moving on, let's bring in this bass. I'm going to find a new section to loop here. This is the bass. This is the lick. I'm gonna solo this bass. How's this bass sound to y'all? Did you say not bad? Any other takes?
Sounds like some funk
What is this bass missing?
some punch to that motherfucker.
This bass is missing bass. It is. It's all mid. You get the pluck of the string kind of like low mid, like kind of nasally. This bass has no bass, and that pisses me off. I don't like it, and I'm gonna do something about it. So, do we go EQ or amp sim?
Amp sim.
Amp sim? All right. So on our bass DI track, so one of the cool things about using a DI is the fact that it is the raw signal of the instrument, right? So one of the main reasons why we use DIs is because they take processing so well. Sometimes when you record guitars, the guitar amp sounds great on its own, but in the mix it doesn't work. So you can take that DI track and send it through an amp simulator to kind of craft a better amp sound that works for that track. This bass sounds like shit, so I'm hoping an amp sim will help kind of give it a little bit more bass as well as a little bit more character. So, Logic has a bunch of amps built into it, so on the bass track I'm going to the audio effects. Let's go down to amps and pedals, bass amp designer, mono, boom, here we are. Now, I don't have the time to go over what each individual amp it does. That's not the one I'm on. All right, this is the amp I'm using. Do any of you play bass?
Yeah, I'm finna learn.
You can learn. None of you actively play. Cool. All right. So what I'm going to say is going to go right over your heads, but that's fine. So each one of these amp sims are built off of what you would call classic bass amps. This is Logic's emulation of something called an Ampeg SVT. Typically, oh, they sound good. They're old tube amps, and they usually give it a little bit more character, a little bit of distortion, grit to the sound that really helps.
Is it running through a cab?
Yes, it is. So, with these with these amp sims, you can change the cab type. So, an Ampeg through an 810 cab is like the way to go. And you can change like the mic positioning on the speaker and everything. You can get pretty detailed with these amp sims. So let's hear how this sounds. So I'm going to turn it off, and this is on. All right, a little bit more bass. This also has a built-in compressor, which, there we go. Let's turn down I want a little bit more like grit, so I'm gonna turn it to bright. I'm not gonna turn it to bright, I'm just gonna turn up the gain. Yeah. There's a game. Yeah, a lot of it is just tweaking the settings so you find something that sounds right.
What's the difference between the two gain knobs? Do they have different purposes?
This is the gain for the compressor, where this is the actual input gain. So yeah, this input gain is how hard it's driving like the tubes, whereas the other one is the gain for the compressor side. Yeah. I like how that sounds. But do you hear something in the bass signal now? I'm gonna play it again. Do you hear it? Yeah.
Get some good ears.
Do you know what that is?
Bleed.
It's not bleed. It's the amp. So when you're using emulations of physical hardware, actual amps aren't as crispy as the plugins that we can get, right? And for accurate emulations, you need some of the behavior of the actual piece of hardware. And for a lot of gear, that is this background noise. Just this little hiss that's going on when you crank an amp too high, because that's just how an amp behaves. So just know that when you're using like analog emulation gear, sometimes you do just get this sound. Now, seeing how none of you noticed it, whether or not that sound matters to you is one thing, but just know that if you're keeping like, if you want to mix it sound like super modern and clean, throwing on vintage emulations of gear is not going to be the way to go, because it's going to introduce some sound. And that sound, it adds what some would call character, others would call flaws, but it's really up for you to decide. But you should know that's there. I'm going to turn this down because that is very hot. I'm going to take off the EQ.
So if you would have put the regular EQ on it, it wouldn't have had that.
Nope.
Bet.
No, because it just would have been boosting the pure frequencies of the signal.
Bet.
But yeah, because we're using like an amp emulation, specifically a tube amp emulation, you're gonna get that noise, but it's just part of it. And honestly, like you really have to be looking for it in the context of a full mix. So now our bass is more full-bodied, and I think it plays really well with the drums. So I'm just gonna bring in the guitar. So, oh, by the way, where should the bass be panned?
Middle.
Do I need to change it? No. Cool. So we have two guitar tracks, guitar DI and guitar amp. So, the guitar amp sounds like this. Alright? And a guitar DI sounds like this. So if you've never heard just a straight up clean electric guitar, that's what it sounds like. It's boring as hell. This is why usually for guitars you don't see just the straight DI. You always see it with an amp. So the amp gives it a little bit more character, a little bit of grit. But you still will sometimes need the DI for that extra little bit of something. And that's what we're going to use. Well, we're going to use both of them in, my mix. For the majority of the track, I want to just have the regular guitar amp going. But did the song have a guitar solo? Do you remember? It does. And what I want to do, when we talk about automation, I'm going to show you how to do this, but I want an amp sim on the guitar DI just for the solo that's going to be like distorted, just to kind of give it a little bit more drive for the solo. But for the majority of the mix, I want the guitar amp to be our main signal. Left or right? Right? Alright. So I'm going to pan my main guitar to the right. The only reason why is because you said right. When you have a single guitar like this, you can really place it anywhere. You can have it move around with automation. It really doesn't matter. But I'm just going to stick it a little bit to the right just so it's kind of close to center but not super far out to where it's separated. But what I am going to stick super far out is the guitar DI. And the reason is I want my guitar DI to kind of act as a reinforcement for the guitar amp. So I'm going to have the guitar amp prominent in the mix, and I'm going to bring down the DI just so it's kind of there but on the other side of the mix. And what that's going to sound like is this. So this is them two together. But just on the other side, kind of quietly, I still have the guitar DI kind of filling up some space. You really don't hear it, but it's going to be there. So I'm going to take off the solos. Alright. How's it sounding so far?
Good enough.
Bass is a little hot. Guitars can come up a little bit.
I don't really feel like it's that touchy. Yeah, it's that way. I don't really feel like a drag off a sitting down. Yeah, can you relate?
Alright. So this is the lead vocal.
The clouds now, yeah, it feels so great. Let me hit that fade.
And then this is the scratch vocal. I want you to tell me if you can hear a difference between the two.
The clouds now, yeah, it feels so great. Let me hit that fade. I don't really feel like a drag off a sick gal. Yeah, can you relate?
Scratch vocal, and then going back to the lead vocal.
The clouds now, yeah, it feels so great. Let me hit that fade. I don't really feel like a drag off a sick gal. Yeah, can't.
What did you hear between the two?
The one sound clear.
The lead vocal?
The one you just played?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. So, the lead vocal was definitely recorded with a better microphone. So if you take a listen to the tonal qualities, the lead vocal,
The clouds now, Yeah.
It's pretty bright.
Feels so great.
As in, like, it's got a lot of high end, but
Let
it's
me
low
hit
defined,
that.
right?
Babe,
And if we switch back to the scratch vocal,
the clouds now. Yeah. It feels so great.
it sounds a little muffled.
Let me hit
Um,
that. Babe.
This was probably recorded.
I know.
The scratch vocal was probably recorded with a 58.
Hmm.
So a thing about this song is it was actually recorded in the studio here at school down in M170. Pineapple Migraine was a local Milwaukee band that came in to record, and the one that did the recording here asked the band if he could use the song for, well, just assignments here at school, and they agreed. So knowing that it was recorded here in our studio with our microphones, probably safe to assume that the lead vocals were recorded with the Neumann U87. Do all of you have a class in the studio? Yeah? What's special about the Neumann U87?
Vocal mic.
It's a vocal mic for sure. What's special about it?
Expensive.
It's expensive. It's very bright. The mic's like $4,000 with a $500 shock mount, and those shock mounts have like $50 rubber bands on them. It's stupid. It's stupid because it's German and they care too much about every little thing. But yeah, so our vocals, they're clean, so we don't need to do much to them because they sound, relatively speaking, pretty good. So, lead vocal, I'm still gonna solo, I'm still gonna put a high pass filter on it because why
The
not?
clouds now. Yeah. It feels so great. Let me